Hello, welcome to another episode of Pump and Dump. Today I am here with Sam and Katie, two other new moms that had babies shortly after I had Cash. Katie had Dale, 2 weeks after I had Cash?
Something like that. He was July 7th, so
Very close.
yeah, probably
And
2 weeks.
Sam is in the group with Marlena.
Marlene and I are 2 days apart.
Insane. So yeah, we wanted to bring them on and hear some more birth stories and experiences with being new moms, trying to figure out this whole mom life.
Yeah, figuring
Why do I
it
sound
out.
like that? Babe? What are you doing? Okay.
Yeah, so I guess
Kick
we'll
it off,
just roll
Katie.
rolling into birth stories here. I think I'm going to build off of I'm going to start back before I even went into labor because I had about 2 weeks of what they called false labor
Oh,
and had contractions for 2 weeks that were like 4 minutes apart and, just kept thinking I was in labor when I wasn't because
not
you
know
don't
that
know
was
what
a
it
thing.
feels like.
Yeah,
Yes.
you really don't
And
know.
I feel like everybody's like, you'll know when you're in labor, but then the whole time you're just like, am I?
Is this
What
it?
is this?
Is it happening?
Yeah. So that was me for like 2 weeks. And when it finally happened, my water broke at like 2:30 and
AM?
I
PM?
didn't know if it was my water. I'm like, did I pee myself? What is this?
AM or
Because-
PM, Katie?
Oh, PM, sorry.
Yeah, okay. We need
2:30 p.m. Just
Okay.
sitting in the afternoon, chilling on my couch. I ate a nice big sandwich and was just like enjoying my summer off. And I thought I peed myself because, like you said last episode, it's not common for your water to just break.
It's not.
So
Not as common
yeah,
as you
so
think.
I'm like, is that what it was? And I doubted myself because I'd been going through it for like 2 weeks. I'm like, I don't know. So I changed my clothes and waited it out, and then it happened again. And I was like, okay, might have peed myself once, didn't do it twice.
Your bladder is a little stronger than that.
Yeah, so I called Jacob, and I'm like, I think my water broke. And he's like, what do you mean you think? And then I felt like another gush, and I'm like, yeah,
Yep.
my water broke.
So
It's
was
time.
this how close to your due date were you? Were you before it, after
I was
it?
due before. I was due Monday the 7th, and my water broke I was due Monday the 11th, and my water broke on the 7th.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was the Thursday. So I was very close. And my whole entire pregnancy, which, Sam, I think this happened to you too, they kept telling me that Dale was huge.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they were like, I swear, I think I had to have a scan because they said he was so big. And when I went, it was like 36 weeks, and they said he was already 8 pounds and something.
Oh my gosh.
So I was scared.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like that's so common that they scare you to think you're going to have this giant baby. And, like, they don't know. They don't know how big that baby is.
Yeah,
No,
we
they
didn't
have-
have to have that special scan, Katie, but Mac's head was measuring 4 weeks ahead of schedule. Like his
Yeah.
head in specific.
And they don't explain too much to you. Like they measure your belly with that whatever, how many centimeters big your belly is, and every time she's like, you're 3 to 4 weeks ahead. So and I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah, what
Am I
does that
gonna
mean?
and they don't really say anything, so you're just like, oh, okay. So my whole pregnancy, I thought he was going to be big, and I expected to go early, but I went pretty much on time. And so 2:30, my water broke. I had similar plans to Courtney with the whole stay at home and labor as long as I could.
So you were a
but I
planner,
tested
plan it out.
Yes, but I tested positive for Strep B.
Oh,
So when I called the hospital, they told me I had to come in because my water broke 1 and 2. I had Strep B, so I had to get antibiotics before I had him. So
And that was just the
that
little
kind of
swab they do, right? That's what that test is, the swab.
yes.
Yeah, and you can,
Yeah, so I-
not ever have it
Yeah.
before you're pregnant. But something about the
no
bacteria.
rhyme or reason.
Yeah.
And she said, like, women, she said we often have it all the time, but it doesn't affect us at all. It's just when the baby comes through the canal, I guess it can affect them. So that's really, she said it pops up in women, you know, all the time. We just don't feel any different when we have it. So I had that. So I had to go in. But by the time I called Jacob and he came home from work, I made him eat a sandwich because I was not dealing with him being cranky in the hospital, like, because he's hungry. So we got to the hospital around 4:30, and my hospital's super small. There's only 5 delivery rooms.
Whoa.
So when I got there, they were all full.
What?
So
we'll just do it in the hallway. It's fine.
Can you, like, hold your baby in for a couple of minutes?
Seriously. We were placed in, like, this, like, weird hallway thing. I don't even know what it was, but they're like, "Are you having contractions?" And I'm like, "I think." But I thought they would have, and I don't know, I thought they would have been a lot worse than what they were. Like,
you lucky little...
I mean, yeah. And I don't know if it's pain tolerance. I don't know what it was, but I'm like, I think. But everybody kept telling me I wouldn't be able to, like, breathe through them or talk through them, and I could. So I was like, I think that's what they are. And they were like 3 minutes apart. So I was like, I don't know. But I got into the room around, like, probably 5. I got into a bed because they sent some poor girl home who wasn't in active labor.
You're not ready. Bye.
Far enough along. Come back.
Take a couple laps around the hospital. We'll call you if we're ready.
I felt so bad. I'm like, oh, they're like, we sent one home.
That is
I'm like,
so
oh, okay.
awkward. What? It's like a hotel. Like, full vacancy. Kicking some people out.
So I was like, okay. So they got me to bed and they swabbed me to see if it was my water breaking. Mm-hmm. And the swab didn't turn whatever color it's supposed to turn. So then I started doubting myself again. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it was something else. So
maybe I did pee myself.
The lady went and got the doctor who, similar to Courtney and Marlena, was not my doctor. Because it was after hours and my doctor was on vacation. So that's
what is up with doctors taking vacations? Like,
mine took one the day before. I'll get into it later.
Oh God.
Yeah, so she came in and she checked me and I was 4 centimeters and 90% effaced. So I was rocking and rolling and in labor. So everything started moving super, super quick, and my contractions were steady and they did start to hurt more. And I told Jacob, I said, if they weren't so back to back to back, I probably could have done it unmedicated, but you just have no second to breathe. And I kept thinking, I'm not going to make it through this if this is, like, you know,
the beginning,
an all day night thing. Yes. I'm like, I'm going to be dead by the time
that was me too.
Yeah. So it was probably around 7:30 p.m. and the doctor, so water broke at 2:30, got on the bed at 5. I was 4 centimeters. Doctor came in at 7:30 and was super pushy about Pitocin.
Ooh,
and
why?
My only birth plan, I didn't want to go in with, like, anything in mind other than I don't want Pitocin because my sister had a bad experience with it. I've had friends that had a bad experience with it, and I was scared. So, and I don't know if you guys have ever heard anybody with bad experiences. I have heard bad things.
Yeah, I've heard it makes your contractions, like, 100 times worse.
Right. So she came in and she was, like, really pushy about it, and I was kind of like, well, I think my body's doing what it needs to, but I don't know. You, like, trust these people.
Right. Well,
like,
first mistake. No. Her reasoning for Pitocin was to speed it up.
Yeah,
you were going too slow, Katie.
And we needed to move it along.
But, like, why?
But in my eyes,
because they only had 5 rooms, they needed to get her out.
Honestly,
and they had 2 scheduled C-sections, and 2 other women while I was there pushed. So they delivered 4 other babies before mine. So I think she was probably just over it, and I get that. But it's also your job, and you signed up for it,
right?
So
and babies aren't born on a clock, like on a time schedule. Yes. They're born when they're ready.
Right. So she came in, and I'm a pushover, and I'm terrible at sticking up for myself. Yeah. And my husband's the same as me. We're kind of just like people pleasers. So I said, like, the only thing is I want an epidural because, like you said, Courtney, I'm like, I've heard that contractions go from 0 to 100. Mm-hmm. So I waited to get an epidural. The anesthesiologist was busy, like, with the C-sections. So he came in at about 8 and did the epidural. It was I was, like, so nervous because you're having contractions mm-hmm. and they want to, like, stick this big needle in your back.
And they're like, stay still. And you're like, okay.
And my guy, he was really good, but I, like, leaned my head back once and he yelled at me because my hair was in the sterile zone and, like, scared the crap out of me. But he had to do it. He had to do it twice, but once it went in, I don't know. I was interested to ask you this, Courtney. When you got yours, did you get, like, a button to press for more?
No. I don't think I was given the button. I don't know. I didn't want, like, more of it, I guess. Because once I was ready to push, I wanted it to kind of wear off.
Well, you wanted them to shut it off.
So mine never made me not be able to feel my legs. It never made me not be able to feel my contractions. It was weird. It, like, took
you still felt them?
Yes, but not fully. Like, it definitely took. I mean, they weren't as bad, but I knew when one was coming. Like, I felt it building up. I felt it the whole time, and then I felt when it was going
manageable.
Away. Like, oh yeah, it was much more manageable. It definitely helped for sure. Nice. It took just enough of the edge off, but it was nice because I could still move around.
The medication, like from my story, the medication doesn't work for everyone. Like in my case, I didn't numb. So
right,
that's
and I don't know if
that can happen.
And I don't know if that's what it was, and I'm the same, and this could be, I'm not a doctor nor a nurse, but when I get, like, Novocaine when I get Novocaine and stuff at the dentist, I'm the same way. It doesn't work for me, so I don't know. I don't know if, like, maybe my body just needs more of it or what. But they also gave me a button to press. Oh, whoops. Sorry. They also gave me, like, a button to press if I wanted more of it, but I never pressed it, whatever. But it definitely took the edge off. I'm not taking anything away from people who do it naturally because that's, they should get a trophy at the end of that.
You absolutely should.
So my epidural was around 8, and then they came in and started Pitocin. And that's where my beautiful birth story takes a pretty terrible turn. Well, I mean, everything worked out, but...
Wait. So you agreed to the Pitocin or no?
I did.
Okay. No, I wanted to make sure you did. I was like, they just did it, or?
Yeah, they did. So they told me my contractions weren't strong enough to dilate my cervix, which we'll get back to that because...
Please do. I've never heard that before.
Right?
Yeah, I'm confused.
The first contraction from the Pitocin, so they put it in, like, a drip bag in your IV.
Okay.
And the very first contraction that I had after they started the Pitocin, his heart rate bottomed out to, it was like 140 was like what it was consistently, and it went below 30.
Oh my God.
And so the nurse hit, like, they have, like, an emergency button, and all these people came flying in and were telling me, like, flip on your belly. And luckily my epidural, I could move, so I flipped onto my belly, and they're putting oxygen on my face. There's probably like 15 people in there. And they put a shot in my arm to stop the contractions, and his heart rate came back up. So that time wasn't, I mean, it was still terrifying, but it was quick. Okay. Like, in reality, it probably was 30 seconds.
So they said
felt like forever.
It wasn't going fast enough. They give you Pitocin. Whoa. We're going too fast now. Let's slow it back down. Like, what?
Is that what happened?
That's what happened. That does not sound logical to me.
I can't.
Yeah, so... Then you'll love this. This
gets better.
Then they had the nerve to tell me there's no way that was the Pitocin that did that because it happened too fast after we put it in your IV. Like, it wouldn't have kicked in that fast.
I'm pretty sure that's exactly how an IV works, but who am I?
Again, we're not doctors.
Again, I'm not a doctor, so I was like, okay, got it. So we let it go for like a little bit till they still kept the oxygen mask on me. And I had to stay, like, on my elbows with my knees, like, dropped down. And I had the internal monitors, so I was able to do that. Because I know if you have the belly ones, things get weird about how you move around. But that was the only way he was getting oxygen. Every time they flipped me onto my back, his heart rate would start to drop again. So I was on my on my elbows and knees for like hours.
Oh my God.
But it was comfortable. It actually was, I enjoyed it.
Okay.
So they came in at about 9:30. So 7:30 was the first round of Pitocin. They came in at 9:30, didn't check me or anything, but were basically like, we're going to try the Pitocin again because there's no way that's what it was. And now looking back, you would say no, right?
Yeah.
But I said, okay.
I mean, no, honestly, Katie, you were probably so exhausted, so overwhelmed. Like, I don't blame you.
And when you're in the hospital, you are so vulnerable. Like, I've never been that vulnerable with strangers in my entire life. And so, like, you're
Strangers,
just do whatever you need to do to me to make this work. Like, I am just a vessel at this point. Like, you kind of just give it up. So yeah, no one blames you for that, Katie. So continue.
Yeah. So yeah, 9:30, 2 hours later, they do another bag of Pitocin, and the first contraction on the Pitocin, his heart rate bottoms out. So they put a shot in my arm. A whole team rushes in. This time, it's over 2 minutes. So they are prepping me for an emergency C-section. The anesthesiologist is in there. All these people are talking about me and not to me, and they're all panicking. I can hear it in the doctor's voice. The anesthesiologist is asking about, I don't know what he would have switched me to, because I thought an epidural was enough for a C-section, but he was asking. Okay, so maybe that's why. So he was asking about changing me to something else, and the doctor said there's no time.
A spinal.
They were talking. One of the nurses said the operating room isn't even clean, and she screamed at them, "Clean it!" So,
and this is all happening while you are in the middle of it all, wondering what is happening to your baby.
Yeah, I'm on my elbows and my knees, and they have a machine where you can hear the heartbeat. So you're laying there for hours. I've been there since 5 o'clock. And, the whole time you hear a consistent heartbeat, and then all of a sudden you hear like, duh, and all kind of time goes by, and you hear another duh, and you're like,
stomach drops.
That's my baby's heartbeat. So I'm trying not to panic, because I know if I'm not breathing, he's not getting oxygen.
Smart. Yeah.
I look over at my calm, cool, and always collected husband, who never panics, and he's bawling. Bawling.
Poor Jacob.
So he's scared. And finally the doctor put her hand on me and was like, "Mom, if you don't want a C-section," because I'm like, I don't want a C-section. Like that's, and Sam's going to talk more about that experience later, but that's when you go in, that's not what you want. So I'm like hysterical. Like, I don't want a C-section. She's like, if you don't want a C-section, then you need to breathe. So I started like really trying to calm myself down, and slowly it started to go up as they were getting ready to wheel me out.
Wow.
So I did not have to get the C-section, but it was extremely close.
Can I pause you for just a second, Katie?
Oh, yeah.
So have they determined that the Pitocin is what made his heart rate drop, and why? Do you just have an adverse reaction to Pitocin? Like, what is that?
Yeah, so there is a reason, and we find out at the end what it was.
Right.
Because no, I'm glad you asked. Because at this point, I think they're wondering the same thing. Because again, they're still claiming it's not the Pitocin, but it clearly was. I mean, there was literally nothing. That was the only common denominator. Every other time his heart was fine.
Right.
So yeah, they were trying to deny it too. So at that point, we still had no idea. But basically, that was the end of Pitocin. Everybody collectively agreed that was enough trauma for us, and that we were good.
Yeah.
So we, and then the funniest part of all of this is, so they had not checked me since when I got there, and I was 4 centimeters, and they did all of this. So she checked me after that whole episode around 9:45, and I was 7 centimeters. What? So I had already progressed by myself without the Pitocin.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Annoying.
So so my advice to everybody listening, especially if you haven't, you're getting ready to give birth is our bodies are pretty amazing. And, you need to trust them and not the doctor sometimes.
Yep.
And just wait it out. Like, if they're in a rush, oh well.
Right. They get paid by the hour.
Yeah. Like your baby knows what it needs. And I'll talk more about that in a couple minutes when I get to the end.
Yeah, I mean, that's why Craig and I wanted to have a doula there, because we had no idea the process or what was going to happen. And we wanted to make sure we had somebody there that filtered things for us and said, hey, this is what's happening. You have options, because everybody knows that when you go to the doctors, you don't feel like you have options. They're like, here's the next thing you have to do. And I'm like, why?
Right.
So, and you don't know. If you've never done it before, like you said, you're in a very vulnerable state. You're just not in a position to make these decisions. So
yeah, and my hospital still had.
You're still in labor.
Yeah, you're in labor on top of it all.
And my hospital still only allowed one person, so it was just me and Jacob. Like, nobody else was allowed to come, so I didn't even have like my mom there or anybody else who had been through birth to kind of be that voice of reason. Like, it was just me and Jacob going through it for the first time. Yeah, trying to figure it out on our own. So if I ever have another one, I will, if they say the P word, I will punch them.
Throat punch them.
So 9:45, she checked me. I was 7 centimeters. Still on my elbows and my knees, and was still feeling pretty good. And around like 11:30 p.m., so about 2 hours after that, a little less than 2 hours, I felt like I had to poop. And people tell you that, but that's genuinely what it feels like.
See, I never got that feeling. I really didn't.
Oh, no.
I got pressure, but...
Nope. I looked right at the nurse and I said, I'm ready to push. And she's like, how do you know? And I'm like, because I feel like I'm going to poop myself. And she was like, oh, yes, then you probably are. So they, flipped me back over, and I was 10 centimeters. So I was ready to rock and roll. So you definitely can tell. And my epidural at that point, I think, had worn off pretty well, because I could feel everything at that point. Now, again, I don't know everything because I haven't done it natural, but I felt
a lot.
Everything was going on down there. Yeah. So, I think it was Marlena said that it was just nurses, or no, it was you, Courtney, that said it was just nurses when you were pushing for a while.
Yeah, and then the doctor basically just catches the baby at the end.
Literally.
And takes all the credit.
My doctor was in there the whole time. So when you said that, I was like, it's weird how different hospitals do it. Like, as soon as I was ready to push, she was in there. And the funniest thing to me was Jacob thought that, there'd be a curtain he could stand behind, or he'd just be able to stand up by my head. And the first thing that the doctor said was, Dad, grab a leg.
Good for that doctor.
Yeah, seriously.
Get Jacob involved.
Get him in there. Whether you want to be or not, buddy.
Right. So the doctor was down there. One nurse had a leg, and Jacob had the other leg, and that's all that was in the room. So I started pushing at 11:40, and my first push... First of all, I did not realize you had to hold your breath the entire time.
That's what Marlene and I were saying, yeah.
Yes, when you watch movies, they do the breathing, to push.
That's bullshit. Nobody does that.
Right. But they literally tell you, take a big, deep breath in, and then you push, and you can't breathe out. You have to hold the breath in. So, I'm seeing stars. I'm
I have no oxygen.
And I had to do, I don't know if this is how yours was, but 3 pushes per contraction was what we did. So, I would hold my breath and push for 10 seconds, and then I could take one big breath, and I'd have to go again. And then I could take one big breath, and I had to go again. And by that third time, I was seeing stars. I thought I was going to pass out. I was like, I'm not going to make it through this. But I kind of figured out, and I figured out how to pull my legs. There were certain ways I had to pull my legs. And once I started doing it, I pushed for 11 contractions, and he was out by 12:06. So I only pushed for 26 minutes.
26.
Yeah.
You're the record so far.
Wow.
You hold the record here. From what I was,
it was
4 hours. Marlena was 45 minutes.
Courtney,
You
I would
brats.
no way.
4 hours.
I'm not kidding.
way.
Ask my mom.
No way.
People were concerned that I was like getting a C-section. I'm like, nope, still pushing. Still pushing.
I could not have made it for 4 hours.
I
Like,
really
was
don't know how
spent.
I did. Yeah, I don't know.
I had broken blood vessels all over my face, on my arms. Like, I was pushing as hard as I could to get that baby out. But when I was on my last push, and you do feel the ring of fire, that's a real thing. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. But when I was on my last push, she said, stop pushing. And then she said the umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck twice.
See, okay.
So
is it that common that every baby comes out with the umbilical cord wrapped around in danger, or is that just normal that they all come out like that?
I think one time is, I don't want to say typical, but it's not, terrible.
Because I feel like I hear that a lot, and they make it seem like it's like a bad thing that we need to fix it now.
It being twice was so my body, this is what I'm saying about trusting your body. Mm-hmm. My body was not, when they said my contractions weren't strong, my body was doing that on purpose.
Oh.
When the Pitocin made my contractions strong, the cord was squeezing his neck.
Oh, wow.
What?
And that is what was making his heart rate drop.
Got, like,
or that's
chills.
at least,
yeah, me too.
Yeah. So
Insane.
it's crazy, like I said, trust your body, because it's almost like my body knew if it would have been stronger, he wouldn't have been able to take it. So that's kind of what the doctor determined was causing his heart to drop with those stronger contractions, was that it was kind of constricting his neck. So
and possibly a little bit of the Pitocin. I don't know.
Wait, it was the Pitocin. It was that causing the strong contraction. So it was the Pitocin, in some way. So, so they stopped me pushing, and then she unwrapped it. And that kind of changed things for after of what I thought it would be. Because when they took him out, he wasn't breathing. So they cut the cord themselves and kind of rushed him off. And I didn't see him at first. So they had him over there trying to get him to breathe and stuff. And
that's Cash. He's like, I'm breathing.
And Jacob was standing over there, and I just remember I just kept saying, is he okay? Is he okay? Because, when you watch the movies, they cry, or, I don't know, it just wasn't that typical dad cutting the cord, baby getting laid on your chest. Then
I'm sure what you envisioned.
It was like I couldn't see him, and I didn't know what was going on. But then, that first glorious cry was just... I don't even know. My whole body was just like, oh.
After all that, I'm sure that's
the biggest
exactly what you
relief.
needed to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the best thing ever. So I just burst into tears after that. So it was definitely.
Did you ugly
worth
cry?
all of the.
I majorly ugly cried.
I think I also screamed I've always wanted to be a mom or something.
I said I did it over and over again. Actually, in my birth plan, I had Craig. Little side story. I had Craig review it to make sure, before, when I went to one of my appointments, I had him review it to make sure, it looked good, if he wanted to add anything. And I should have known. I should have known to read it over after he looked at it. But I didn't. I took it to the doctor's office, one of my last appointments, and she's reading through it with me, and she chuckles at the end. I'm like, what's funny? I didn't put anything funny, and there's some pretty serious stuff. And she's like, I like that. I'm like, what? She's like, the applause. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, after you push the baby out, you want a round of applause. I'm like, oh my God, Craig.
You do deserve it, though.
I know. I was like, that's actually a good one. I thought it was going to be something ridiculous. But then they did. They gave me a round of applause, and I was like, this is awesome.
Funny.
Yeah.
That is too funny. But I still, mine wasn't they say every trauma is different, and I think sometimes we compare our birth stories to other people, and like my baby came out healthy and everything was fine, but I definitely, still felt a little bit of trauma throughout it of just kind of, worrying every second of it.
Up and down.
I feel like I didn't get to enjoy, not that you enjoy it, but the whole time I was on like high anxiety alert, like worried that something was going to go wrong or that his heart was going to drop again. So I felt like that was kind of what I was worried about the whole time. But yeah, I mean, once they laid him on my chest and stuff and I, got him to latch and I breastfed for a while, like all of that kind of went out the window and I was like, it was all worth it.
Yep.
But it was definitely, and to add, first of all, the placenta being delivered felt amazing. I don't know if
I
that's
didn't
gross
feel
to
mine.
people, but
No.
Oh my God.
I didn't feel mine.
See, my epidural like clearly was wear off
I'm jealous.
a lot by that point.
You're jealous.
Well, that was like the biggest thing I was worried about was after I gave birth to the baby, I'm like, I have to give birth again. And I didn't even know it came out.
Oh, wow.
It's disappointing.
No, I didn't even have to push. And I've heard people say like them pushing on your belly hurts.
Yes.
Like, mine was super, the doctor was super gentle.
I don't even want to talk about that. That's like the worst for me.
Yeah, my best friend said the same thing, that was the worst part. Like she told me that, kind of be prepared for that. And it did not hurt me. She kind of massaged my belly and
she gentle
got the
hands.
placenta out. But I just felt so empty and it was just like, oh my God.
Your
and
empty baby house.
Yeah, I asked Jacob afterwards because he was like so encouraging through all the pushing and was like, that was a good one. And I like asked him afterwards, I'm like, were you watching? Because that shocked me. And he was like, oh no, I was just repeating what the nurses were saying. He's like, but and then he said, but when you said, oh my God, I did look down and I had to see that ugly alien looking thing.
That's hilarious.
And then after I'm like backtracking a little, but after that happened, my baby was still, I didn't even get to hold my baby. And the nurse is like, do you want to see your placenta before I take it?
No, ma'am, give me my baby. I don't care about my placenta. Well, if you want to know what it looks like, I have a picture of my placenta on my phone.
Can I see
Apparently.
I'll
show you after.
Courtney, I want to see it because I didn't get to see any of it.
My doula took pictures of everything. Like,
yeah,
everything.
I literally said, nope, don't want to see it, not even a little bit.
Well, I'm going to see Courtney's placenta.
All right. Show and tell.
I didn't get to see my own, but I'll look at Courtney's.
And I think the funniest thing is the most painful part for me was the stitches afterwards.
Really?
I was so uncomfortable and I hated the burning. Like it hurt.
Well, if your epidural didn't work as well, then that makes sense.
Oh yeah, like
that you felt that part.
Was so painful. Like I was like, oh God, like that was the worst part for me. So I was like, and then I'm like trying to enjoy having my baby, but I was still like, can this be done? Can we like wrap this up?
Are you done yet?
Yeah, so, 12:06 on my mother-in-law's birthday. So we
really?
made it by
I didn't
6
know.
minutes. Yeah, she said that was the best gift she ever could have gotten. Luckily, I had the best mother-in-law ever, so I was okay with sharing it.
Awesome.
But I think 7/7/22 is a pretty good birthday.
That is a good one.
It's an easy one to remember. Jacob better never forget that.
Right.
Craig still asks me.
For that one.
Is it 6/28, right? I'm like, yeah. We'll see how much longer.
I'm still trying to remember when Mac was born. Currently over here, I can't remember.
No, really, it's hard to remember.
What time?
Yeah, and that's what when I was saying about everybody's trauma is different. Like Sam, about to share yours. Like I feel like obviously yours was probably pretty much as traumatic as it can get, and I feel like it makes me feel grateful that I didn't have to go through what you did. And that it's hard for you to listen to somebody else's and to be over there trying to think about it. So I think you're admirable for coming and sharing on here and letting us know, cause you're a superwoman for what you went through. So
thank you, Katie. You're going to make me cry. But something I have learned through my process of processing this trauma with my therapist is that everybody's trauma is their own trauma. So like you really cannot compare it to somebody else's. Like I used to think when people said, oh, my birth was traumatic, I'm like, yeah, okay, well, you're alive and your baby's alive. So, like, all is well in the world. But I cannot stand when people tell me that now. Like,
I bet.
it grinds my gears. Like, yes, I'm alive.
Your baby's healthy.
Yeah, your baby's healthy.
That's all that matters.
That's not all that matters. No. Like, I'm still a human being.
But
and I went through hell. And you went through your own sort of hell, Katie. So, like, the comparing game, we're not going to do that in our friend group. But
no,
I appreciate what you said.
And I think when you get to the other side, you know, it's all about baby. You're pregnant and everybody's, you know, how are you? How are you feeling? How's this? And then baby comes and nobody really asks anymore. So when you go through that little bit of trauma, like you're saying, when people kind of diminish it and just kind of brush it off, you're like, you know, I'm like,
still here,
struggling.
I'm not having a great time.
When people ask you, how are you? And you tell them the truth, like, I'm okay. Like, I'm still struggling a little bit with what happened. They don't know what to say. Like, they freak out and they're like, oh, how's he sleeping? You know, like, they change the subject. And I'm like, you just asked how I was. I was honest with you, and now I don't know what to do.
Now you're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Okay.
But now everybody's uncomfortable.
And I think our generation needs to break that. And I think that's why us doing this podcast is just so awesome, because we've been there for each other through all of this. And I think our generation needs to be the one to kind of end that just be tough kind of attitude. Or you're a mom. That's what moms do. We sacrifice ourselves. And sure, we do. But at the same time, we're still people and we matter. So that's, So I guess building off of that, Sam, you feel comfortable sharing yours?
Yeah, I do. I'm getting better at it. I will say, like, I may get emotional. Like, talking about it sometimes, like, brings up things that I think I'm over, but I'm really not just talking about it. So, fair warning, I might get
totally acceptable. Teary-eyed. We can cry, laugh, all of it.
I might. But little Cash over there will bring a smile to my face, for sure.
Pastel.
So, I guess I'll start, like, before also, like Katie did. I had all of the intentions of a as natural as possible birth as well. I looked into having a doula like Courtney. I was quoted $7,500.
What?
I don't know what you paid.
That.
I could not do it.
Wow.
I thought $7,500 was too much, and I was like, I'm just going to take all the classes I can. I'm going to be my own advocate. Like, I'm not going to spend all that money. And I also did not go to McGee. It was an option with my insurance. But I had, like, a fear of that drive. And I know that I think McGee has a doula, like, on staff there that, like, rotates through everyone, I want to say. But I declined that, too, because Westmoreland was just 2 seconds from my house, and it was just peace of mind, so that's where we
could walk
went.
if, like, all your cars broke down.
Exactly. So I declined both of those, and I did all the classes. I was a STAR student. I am a parent educator myself.
The opposite of Marlena, the first episode.
When she said I took no classes and I'm winging it, I'm like, oh my God, I could never.
Oh my God,
so
Sam,
funny.
it's the educators in us, because I did all kind of classes too. I feel like when you're an educator, you're just like, I gotta.
I push parent education for my job, and so how could I not be informed? So I took all the classes. They were all virtual, unfortunately, because of COVID, but hey, I took them. So I thought I was pretty prepared. I will also say that I have a history of substance use in my family, not myself, but in my family, it runs in my blood. And so I was very strong about not having certain medications. Like, I did not want IV meds because I didn't want me to have that, and I didn't want Mac to have that. And I was really nervous about even an epidural, as crazy as that sounds. So
no, not at all. It's not crazy at all.
I was really trying not to do much medication. So I forget when we went in, maybe 35 weeks. He was breech. And they were like, well, we'll give it a week or two. go enjoy your beach vacation, and we'll see you.
You literally drove to the beach.
I did.
Super pregnant.
I was 36 weeks pregnant.
You're nuts.
Like, did you stop every hour to pee?
Basically, yeah.
Hour? You were making it a whole hour without peeing?
Every stop, yeah. Every rest stop there was, I stopped and peed. Brian was really a trooper for that one. But yeah, I went to the beach. Felt great. I did start feeling a little uncomfortable at 36 weeks because it was so hot. And we did a lot of walking, but I was able to relax and all was good. So we come back from the beach and we get, looked at again. He's still breech. And they offer me, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like EV procedure. I don't know what that stands for at the moment. But it's where they from externally, they try to flip the baby.
Oh.
So,
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good.
I've heard it is really, really painful,
Yeah.
and they sent me home with some information, and they said, think on it. So I did some research, and it is way more invasive than them just pressing on your stomach.
Really?
They give you a medication that relaxes your uterus, but it relaxes it so much that it can send you into preterm labor.
I was just going to say, can it make you go into labor? Wow.
Yeah. So the odds, and because he was measuring big, like we talked about before, Katie.
It's called external cephalic? No? No. Craig's trying to Google it.
If you find the name, Craig, go for it.
I don't know
we're
how to
not
pronounce
doctors,
the second
clearly.
word.
Cephalic?
So yeah, it's where they press on your stomach externally and they try, but it's way more invasive than that. So I declined the procedure because it was only a 50-50 shot.
Oh.
And because of his size, they said I was probably closer to a 25% success rate. And those odds just weren't enough for me. So I decided against it. Mm-hmm. So deciding against it made me have to do a planned C-section, which... So,
Sam, sorry.
No, go for it.
But did you try any of those, home remedy? I'm just, interested if you tried anything. Put something cold on the top and warm on the bottom.
Yeah, that is something they suggested, or the old wives' tale. I looked up the spinning babies. Anybody out there that has a breech baby, you can look into spinning babies. It's where you invert yourself for 30 minutes at a time, and I don't know, you do certain things. And we did try it. I did try it, but and probably not as often as they had wanted you to, according to the website. And at that point, I was like, if this is what it's supposed to be, this is what it's supposed to be. There's a reason why he's breech in my head. Mm-hmm. I was like, they're saying his head is measuring 4 weeks ahead. And if you know my husband, he has a giant ass head. And his mom, ever since we started dating, has said, honey, you're never going to be able to deliver vaginally.
Oh my God.
Look at my son's head. She has said that from the get-go. So I was like, there's a reason why he's breech. I'm not supposed to deliver vaginally. I'm supposed to have a C-section. This is what I was telling myself to make myself feel better, right?
That's good.
But that's where I was going. So I was like, I'm not taking any more measures. A planned C-section is what's going to have to happen, and it is what it is. So I talked to my therapist, actually, who just had 2 babies. And so she's been I love my therapist because she's great. But she's also, she can take off her therapist hat at times and relate as a mom. And
I love that.
That really meant a lot to me. So when I told her about all this, she was like, okay, therapist hat off. I've had 2 C-sections, and this is what I've done to make myself feel comfortable.
Wow.
Look up a gentle C-section. So everybody out there can Google gentle C-sections, and there are things that you can do to make it less of a medical procedure. Oftentimes when you have a C-section, you're strapped down. You can request not to be. Mm-hmm. You can request the lights to be dim. You can request a playlist to be played. You can request a lot of these things, which made me feel more in control.
Didn't you say a mirror too that you were planning on having? Am I making that up?
No, I was open into a mirror if I was delivering vaginally.
Oh, I was going to say,
I wouldn't want to. I don't know why I thought that was after. Okay, sorry.
No, that's
I've always
okay.
wanted to know what my kidney looked like. I have no idea. I don't even know if you can see that during your C-section.
I don't know where your kidneys are, but I don't know. But yeah, so gentle C-section, it's a thing. Look it up. And I was planning on doing all of those things. I talked to my doctor about it. They were on board with me having my own playlist, and I was okay with it. I was coming around to the idea. It is not what I wanted, and that in itself was something to grieve. Like, I'm never going to have my water break. I'm never going to experience a contraction. I'm not going to labor. Like, those were things that I've always wanted to experience,
right?
And I felt like
deprived of it a little bit.
Deprived and like less of a woman, if that makes sense. Like,
no.
But it is true.
Yeah.
Like, it is something that you feel like you didn't do it. I'm trying to come to terms with that, but it is like a loss that you truly have to grieve. So I had already gone through that grieving process of, I'm not going to have a vaginal delivery, but I'm going to have this planned C-section, a gentle C-section, and it's scheduled at Tuesday, September 6th at 7:30, and that's how it's going to go. That's not how it went.
Was that harder to know the day that's coming?
Yeah,
like, were you
I
more
couldn't
anxious,
imagine.
or was it like
It was
better to have a planned? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
So,
I don't know.
I'm a planner. I'm a type A person. So, like,
Yeah,
it was
that's how I am,
great
too.
for me. It was great.
Yeah.
You're like, cool, I know my baby's going to be born on this day. Great.
Yeah.
I can plan all my other life around it.
I got to pick his
Right.
birthday. I picked,
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
I picked 9/6 because it's all divisible by 3, and 3 is my favorite number.
Okay,
And, like, I'm not kidding. I was like, I can control this. Like, I love control. So
That's amazing.
That was good for me because of the type of person I am. But the excitement of, oh my God, my water broke, which we know doesn't happen to everybody. But the excitement of, oh my God, it's happening. I
Right.
didn't get to experience that, but I did get the control. Woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning, made the 5-minute drive, like, got settled into the hospital.
You probably, like, were all, like, refreshed, like, did a little touch of makeup.
Oh, girl, I curled my hair. I had a full face of makeup on. The eyebrows were
why
drawn on.
not?
Like, I was like, I'm going to get good pictures. That's something I said to my therapist, too. I was like, I can have my hair done. I'm going to look great because I'm just going to, it's like a 10-minute procedure.
That's
like,
amazing.
the pictures are going to be fabulous. I'm not going to be sweaty and ugly. Like, I was trying to find the silver linings in everything, and I was able to identify some positives. So Tuesday the 6th rolls around. I did not sleep the night before. Like, how can you?
No.
You just cannot
no
sleep. And you guys know at that point, you're not sleeping anyhow through the night.
Not
Like,
comfortable.
when you're that pregnant, you're just not sleeping. So, yeah, we get to the hospital. You know, I'm nervous, but I'm more excited than anything. And I will say also, this whole time, since the day I got pregnant or the first doctor's appointment, you know how they do, like, blood drawn? They get your blood and they just test random things, I guess.
A lot, all the time?
All the time. You're constantly giving blood. I never had an issue giving blood before.
Okay.
But until I got pregnant.
Oh.
They had to try multiple times at every single appointment.
Oh, my God.
I learned that there was a certain nurse that I could go to that got it the first time. Like, me giving blood was an issue the whole time. So, yeah, which is strange, but it's important to note that, I think. So they start you off with getting IVs in. And the lady's like, okay, I'm going to give you your IV. And my husband just kind of chuckles. He's like, I hope you can get it because, like, she freaks out if you don't get it the first time because I get nervous.
Yeah. I wouldn't want them messing around a
Way
bunch.
to jinx it, Ryan.
Yeah. And yeah,
Seriously.
so the nurse is like, yeah, you have pretty tough skin. I'm going to try in another area. And I'm like, okay, here we go. Here we freaking go. So they try in the other arm, and then they end up doing it in my hand instead of the elbow.
Okay.
So that's a thing to note. you get settled. They hook you up to a whole bunch of machines. They, just ask you questions. The anesthesiologist comes in, introduces himself, and then they get me dressed and they get Ryan dressed. And they said, okay, well, we're going to take Sam back to do the spinal procedure. And for those of you who don't know, a spinal and an epidural are two different things. Mm-hmm. A spinal is what they give you for a planned C-section because you're more numb than an epidural. So they try to do a spinal for a planned, and then if you're in emergency, you have the epidural, but they up it a lot. They like double the dose. So basically you can get one with an epidural, but they start with a spinal. So they tell me that they're going to wheel me back. My C-section is planned for 7:30, so around 7:30 they wheel me to the operating room by myself. Ryan's not allowed to be in the room when they're doing the spinal procedure. I don't know why.
See, Marlena said the same thing when she got her epidural.
Yeah.
That's weird to me.
Where, like,
Jacob was in there for mine.
Yeah,
Jacob was in there for mine too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was weird that I had to go in by myself.
And he was all dressed and ready to be in the room.
Yep, he had his full suit, hair and tie, everything on, the booties on.
The booties on.
Yeah, and... yeah, so I went back by myself at 7:30, and they said, okay, it should only take about 10 minutes, and then Ryan will come in. So they wheel you in this cold, bright-ass room, and the table is surprisingly small. Like, it is so narrow. Like, I'm a very small person.
For you to lay on?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's something that really stood out to me is, like, how does a larger person fit on this table? Like, it is...
Do they have different
sizes? Yeah, you're very
tables?
small. Like, for people who don't know Sam, he's very small.
Yeah, I'm 4'10" on a good day. So it was a really small table. And I had to get, like, 2 step stools. The nurse had to, like, basically pick me up to put me on this thing because I'm so small. So that was that. So they get me in the position of the spinal, and I am holding on to my doctor, Dr. Nolfi, and he's holding my hands and helping me, like, breathe through it. And, they're talking to me.
He was there for you.
He was, yeah. And they try to do the spinal, and it doesn't work. So it did. I'm still very confused. So it did work, apparently. But they got Yeah, they got into my spinal space. Okay. But the medication did not numb me. So my butt was numb and my feet were tingly, but they laid me down and they did what it's called a pinch test. So I'm supposed to be able to feel something, but I'm not supposed to be able to feel pressure. Pain. Yeah. Okay. So they pinch you on your shoulder with this tool, and then they pinch you. Yeah. It
just their fingers?
It was not his fingers. No. It was
this
like
is our special pinching tool?
Yeah. Maybe it was like a, I don't know, like a push pin?
Like a tweezers?
I don't know. But it was not his fingers. He did it on my shoulder, and then he did it on, like, my leg, like my upper leg. And he was like, can you feel that? I'm like, yeah. And he was like, does it feel the same? I'm like, yes. And he tries it again. And he's like, well, we'll give it another minute. So they lay me there, and I'm, like, starting to freak out.
By yourself still? Ryan's
by
not
myself.
There.
Yeah, I'm by myself.
Right.
So they're like, we'll give it another minute. Sometimes for certain people, it takes a little longer. And so I'm waiting there, trying not to think the worst, but that's just how my brain goes.
Yeah.
So I get up. They're like, okay, well, we're going to try again. So he sits me up. At this point, Dr. Nolfi leaves to update Ryan because it's been 25 minutes probably.
He's probably panicking out there.
Yeah. So Dr. Nolfi leaves, and this other nurse takes over. Love this woman, Tanya at Westmoreland Hospital. I love you. If you ever listen to this, shout out to Tanya because she's the only reason why I got through it.
I love it.
Yeah, she's
love
great.
Nurses. Love them.
Cannot even. I could never be a nurse, and they deserve all the money in the world because that woman and another one, Libby, they're both great, and I made sure they knew it before they left, or before I left. Anyhow, so they try again the spinal, and let me tell you, this is not a fun experience. Like, they're digging in your spine. They are going to the left, and it sends, like, a zinger down your left leg, and they're like, what leg was that?
What?
I'm like, my left. They're like, okay, gotta go over to the right a little bit. Like, they're telling me this.
Oh,
like,
my God.
And I'm getting, like, shocks, like, through my body. Like, I can feel my spinal cord being played with. Like,
I'm literally sick thinking about that.
it's, yeah.
And that's not something to mess around with.
No, it's not a fun experience.
One slip.
Yeah, honestly.
And I'm 9 months pregnant. I'm hunched over, can't breathe because, like, in the position that you're in, like, for those of you who did get an epidural, imagine being in that position for an hour with them digging in your spine, because that's what happened to me. I couldn't breathe. They shoved oxygen, like the little tube, but I was so upset and, like, my anxiety had, like,
mess.
I was a mess. I was crying. Snot was pouring out of the, like, the tubes. They had to rip the oxygen off and give me, like, stuff to calm me down, like, because it wasn't working. So I eventually, the guy...
And they still never... I'm sorry, but they still never brought Ryan in, even for a minute, to, like, comfort you?
No.
I don't understand that.
If he was going to be there through the whole C-section, what was the difference?
Right.
Like, what?
Yeah, Ryan was nowhere. I was in a room full of strangers. I had never met these people. Dr. Nolfi, the only person I semi-knew, was gone. So I didn't know anybody. So I'm in Tanya's arms, like, sobbing. And then they say, okay, we're going to get a different anesthesiologist, a new set of eyes, a new set of hands, and she's going to give it a try. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, starting to think in my head, what is plan B here?
Yeah.
Because I had never been told a plan B. I was told, you're going to get a spinal, your baby
Easy
will
peasy.
be born in 8 minutes, and you're going to be good to go.
And you're like, this isn't in my plan.
I'm like, it's past 8 o'clock at this point. He should have been born by now. I'm like, what happens if this doesn't work? And another thing is like, I didn't get numb that first time. So what if this works, quote unquote, and then it wears off during surgery?
God.
That is my biggest fear is. That is my current fear with having a second child, which I'll get into next. But
you're not having a second child right
yeah,
now,
I'm
are
not
you?
pregnant, by the way. I'm not pregnant, but
Felt like we need to clear the air there.
yes. So
And at the end, pregnancy announcement.
yes. Could you imagine?
No.
So the second anesthesiologist comes in. She's super chipper, and at this point, I'm like, just freaking do it. I'm like, don't make side conversations.
Yeah.
Don't try to
Don't
make
tell
it
me
sound
what
better.
you're doing.
Just get this done. And the whole time she's playing with my spine, she's like, you're doing great, sweetie. You're doing so great. I know I'm freaking doing great.
Shut up.
You're not doing great.
Yeah, like,
you
it's
guys
not
are
me
doing
I'm worried
great.
about.
I know. I'm like, you don't got to tell me. Like, you guys got to figure out your own thing. I can only do so much here in this position. So she tried for a third spinal at this point. It failed. And then they tried an epidural. So they said, we're just going to try the epidural space, and we're going to thread the catheter, and we'll just do it that way, and everything will be okay. I'm like, okay.
So all of this in your back, like, this is all in the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Over an hour at this point.
I had 5 puncture holes in my back. I have a picture of it.
I do not want to see that picture.
Yeah, I was really
You can see my placenta,
not
but I don't want to
tell
see
for
that.
Yeah.
Placentas, yes. Back punctures, no.
Nobody wants to see the little holes. It's really not that
Sam.
bad.
I'll take a look.
Okay, I'll show you. Okay. Do you want to? Here, oh wait, no, I'm using my phone for you, Katie.
Afterwards,
After,
yeah.
I need your reaction though for the podcast. You know, don't you think? Here, I'll try to find it while we're on here. I don't know if it'll mess anything up.
Don't hang up on Katie.
I'm not gonna hang up on Katie. Okay, so she tries for the epidural, and for some reason, the catheter will not flow through the like it wouldn't go. She couldn't feed the catheter. So I'm like, okay, well now
Does
what?
any of this, did they say, does this have to do with, like, because you're smaller, maybe? Like,
They said potentially. But there's really no... I haven't yet to get
An explanation.
Explanation, yeah. Here you go, Craig. Here's my back.
I literally
The
saw a
day
glimpse of it,
after.
and I want to be sick.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not fun.
Well, that'll be a good depiction for our listeners.
There you go, listeners.
It grossed Craig out on that. He saw my placenta.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm enjoying this story, but you're reinforcing my distrust in doctors.
Yeah.
Both stories.
I have very much a doubt. So
I feel like both of us are kind of
Yep.
not trusting doctors at this point.
Yeah. And the fact that they have no explanation to this day why things happen the way they did. So the catheter didn't work for the epidural. So I'm like, okay, well, what's my other option? And the anesthesiologist said, we can give it another try. And Dr. Nolfi came in at that point and was like, nope, we're not putting her through that. She's going down.
Thank you,
And-
Dr. Nolfi.
And I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does going down mean?
Oh.
I'm like, what's going on? Because I need to know, like,
What's happening?
The
need a
anesthesia.
plan.
This is the worst part. I don't know if I've ever told you guys this. The anesthesiologist comes over to the front of me. I'm sobbing at this point, like snot everywhere. And he looks at me and says, "You're going to miss the birth of your baby."
I'm literally gonna cry.
Oh my God.
I know, it's
Why would you
awful.
say that?
Wow.
I don't know why he was so harsh
Straightforward.
and straightforward. Like, I feel like there's a nicer way to say that. But yeah, that was awful. And so I'm
the
like,
bedside manner. Like, come on.
no
this
bedside
is
manner. And I was
You're
like,
already a mess.
yeah, I was already a
distraught.
mess at this point. I'm like,
Poked, jabbed, been through it.
And Ryan is still not.
Ryan's
in the
not
room.
here. Ryan has no. Poor Ryan's in the other room.
Not knowing, did my baby be born? Is my baby here? Like,
Yeah.
what's happening?
So I'm like, I need Ryan. I literally said that. I'm like, I need Ryan. Get him.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were able to bring Ryan in. They were like, don't touch anything. It's a sterile space. Ryan comes in, and I said, I guess I'm going under anesthesia. And he said, yeah, Dr. Nolfi told me. And then I started asking questions like, where's Matt gonna go? And Ryan's like, he'll come to me. They already told me that he'll come to me, and I'm gonna do skin to skin. Like, I already
Stop,
like,
I'm literally crying.
yeah, because skin to skin was really important to me. And he's like, so I'm gonna take him, and I'm like, how long will I be under? And they're like, the procedure itself will take 8 to 10 minutes, but you'll be under for an hour and a half. Oh, there's tissues here.
Yeah.
Thanks. And I'm
Craig
like,
is really a good producer.
yeah, he is. So tissues on hand. So, and this is all happening really fast, kind of like you said, Katie. Like, it's probably only 30 seconds, but it felt like an hour. Like, and I'm like, okay, so this is what's
And
happening.
you're trying
This
to
is the plan.
rationalize.
You're trying to wrap your head around it.
Yeah.
And I love-
You're trying to,
love-
like, figure, like,
That Ryan
ahead,
came in and was like, he knew the plan and he knew what you wanted, and he told you what he was gonna do for
that
you and the
was
baby.
so-
That was
Right.
very good support system.
Yeah, but
he
it
took
was,
a terrible situation and tried to give you some kind of, like, but I'll be sure to do this.
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
he was freaking out though.
I'm sure.
He was terrified because he's like never really been around a baby that, and then to be by himself. Like I was
Right.
not
Right.
in the room, so like he had that whole. He was freaking out. Another thing that happened that I should note is we watched Fatherhood with Kevin Hart 2 days before. And those of you who don't know, the mom dies of complications of a C-section.
What?
So,
God.
yeah.
How would you watch that?
I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't know.
So,
And
like, you guys are watching this funny movie, and then, is that a funny?
No, it's not
Oh,
really
is
a
that
funny
the series?
movie.
Okay, I never
no.
saw it. So
I've
you're watching
never
this.
seen it.
You're watching this movie, and then it gets to the end, and you're both just staring at each other, like,
No, the mom dies in the first like 15 minutes.
oh.
And then
Why,
the
you
movie
finished it?
continues.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
Well,
We'll
what
talk
else
about
could
it.
happen after that?
Yeah. So Ryan is thinking the worst at this point. He's like,
How
I
could he
just
not?
watched this movie where the mom died of complications of a C-section, and Sam's having every complication there is. So, yeah, he was freaking out. I was freaking out. Then they're like, will you take pictures? So Ryan leaves to go get the phone, and they don't let him back in. I thought he was coming back in, and he doesn't come back in. And they lay me down on the table. They shove oxygen on my face. Like, I was just completely not in control of my body. Like, they strapped me down. They threw oxygen on my face. And then, like, I don't remember anything else.
You're kidding me.
And apparently, like, after talking to Ryan about it, he saw all that.
And he, from a distance, he couldn't be beside you.
No.
What?
He was like locked out of the room. And it just through the window, he saw them lay me down on the table, strap me down, and put oxygen on. Yeah.
Wow.
He was like, it was the most terrifying thing I've ever seen.
It's as if you're like some like in like a mental health ward.
Yes.
That you were just like incapable of being present for the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You were very much capable of being present for that.
But,
Wow.
I mean, there was no other option. The numbing wasn't working, and I couldn't deliver vaginally because he was breech.
Right, but
and
like they could have not made it so like...
they could have taken the next, like, 2 minutes to, like,
Right.
just lay me down nicely
Yeah.
or let me lay down by myself and
Or explain
talk
to you kind of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah, it was very rushed. And then the first thing I remember, I do remember being wheeled into the room, and I remember Ryan holding Mac, and I remember Ryan saying, the first thing he said to me was like, "You make a really cute baby." And I'm very loopy at this point. Like, I don't fully come to for a few hours.
Wow.
But apparently I breastfed.
Oh, that's amazing.
Nurse Tanya, again, she put the baby on me and
Just made it happen.
Yeah, she
That's
made it
amazing.
happen, and I don't remember it at all. But that was so important for
Again,
the latch.
shout out Tanya.
I know.
Seriously, she knew how important it was to do that
Yeah.
right away. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And it was 45 minutes still. 45 minutes
Wow.
had went by.
And Mac latched right on.
Latched right on. Must have been really hungry.
He's
Yeah.
like, "Man, Mom, I thought I was going to be born 2 hours ago."
Yep. So I'm very loopy at this point. The pictures I have, oh my God, I'll show you. We'll get another live reaction of a photo I have on my phone for our viewers.
Sam, was that like hard to look at those pictures and realize like you didn't remember it?
Yes, it's still very hard to look at it. Yeah, I still get really emotional just thinking that I missed 45 minutes of Mac's life.
And like the very beginning of it too, you know? And not at all each option that you went through wasn't what you were planning or oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, your eyebrows do look really good.
The eyebrows are on point, but
Oh,
you could tell I was
see?
crying. Look,
Yeah.
like my face. I'm so out of it. Like, no.
You're like, I know my baby's here though.
Yeah.
And that isn't that like amazing? Like your body's still just new.
Knew what to
Like-
do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was amazing. I'm so proud that I was able to breastfeed. And honestly, without Tanya, I wouldn't have
You don't
been
even
able
know.
to do it.
Yeah.
Because I
If you didn't have somebody
of my
there,
body.
right? If you didn't have somebody there to just do it for you, yeah, that's huge.
And then they come in. So I'm breastfeeding. And while he's on me, and I'm loopy as all get out, they press on my stomach. Oh my God. It was the most painful thing because I had just been cut open. And they still press on your stomach like that.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. Hard. I like beveled over, like I almost dropped Mac, I feel, because I was like
Yeah.
out of it.
Well, when they were doing that to me, I was also holding. I had to hold my doula's hand and squeeze her hand, or I was gonna squeeze my baby because it hurt so bad. And at this point,
So-
you're off anesthesia, so you should not be feeling
No, I
too
didn't-
much of it.
Yeah.
but you were.
I was just like, it takes you a while, your brain to like fully wake up, but
Yeah.
I felt everything. I felt
And so do they still do that because your uterus needs cleared out too?
yes.
Like is that
your uterus? My
Okay.
uterus still needs to contract.
right?
And-
to contract
Gosh, I feel like
and
when I kick things, it gets really loud. I hope they can't hear that.
It doesn't pick. Some of it does, but most of it doesn't pick up in the audio.
Good, because I'm making a whole bunch of noise over here. So, fun fact, you still bleed like you normally would for a vaginal delivery after a C-section. I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
Yeah, because you still have the wound from a placenta. If you think about it, it makes total sense.
So wait, did they take the placenta out with Mac?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But you still bleed through your vagina because you still have a wound from where your placenta was.
That
So
makes
I
sense.
still
Okay.
bled for 3.5 weeks.
Wow.
So,
well, and there's still like residual
Birth.
like blood and fluid in your belly and in your uterus. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
still
yeah.
has to come out.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
wild.
But I feel like the average person doesn't know that. They think,
no,
like,
I did not know
Right.
that.
when you have a C-section,
It's
you
like all
don't have to do
peachy
it. Yeah, no. So it gets worse, believe it or not.
Oh my god, Sam.
Well, you know this part. So, I finally get settled, get into the room, and breastfeeding's going great, and I just, like, have this headache, and
I remember now.
I get allergies, like, when I'm in buildings that have forced air, so I thought it was just that. So I asked for some allergy medication, and that didn't work, and I'm like, this headache is still, like, really here. And they were like, does it get worse when you stand up? But at this point, I wasn't really standing up.
I was going to say,
Like,
how much are you standing up?
Yeah, I wasn't able to get out of bed yet. So I'm like, I can't really tell. And they were like, okay. Do you have, like, a ringing in your ear? And I'm like, I don't have a ringing, but I have a whooshing. It was like, shoo, shoo, shoo.
Oh.
That's what it sounded like in my right ear. And I'm like, yes, I have the whooshing. And they were like, okay, we think you have a spinal headache, which is a complication that's very rare, that you can get when you have an epidural. It's when they nick your dura in your spine, and you leak spinal fluid.
What?
And
in your... Wait, when your spinal fluid leaks
Yes.
into your body.
Yes.
I had heard of that, and that was like part of why I didn't want an epidural from the start.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for you to have to suffer through that and the epidural not even help
work.
you.
Yeah, the epidural didn't even work. I just got the spinal headache from it. So what happens when your spinal fluid leaks is your brain is basically starving of fluid, or it's dehydrated, I should say, because your spinal fluid coats your brain and it gives it like a nice cushion. And when you're leaking that spinal fluid, your brain's not getting what it needs, and so that's what causes the headache. And so they gave me pain medication, but of course I did not want narcotics. I was offered Oxycontin. I cannot tell you how many times.
Oh my god.
Countless of times, and it's in my chart that I do not want narcotics, and I have a history of it in my family. And they, every time they came into the room, they were like, remember, Oxycontin's an option.
Oh my
Remember,
gosh.
you can get Oxycontin. I'm like, stop offering it to me. I don't want it. I will take IV Tylenol. I will take IV caffeine. I don't want it. Like,
Wow.
stop. I was getting pissed off at this point.
Yeah.
Well, and one, it being in your chart, and two, you being like so vulnerable
I know.
at that time. Like you're saying, like, I mean,
I've
Ryan
been
was
through enough
there,
already.
but-
Like,
Huh? Yeah.
yeah, and I am in pain, and for them to even like give you that choice when it's in your chart, like, come on.
Yeah.
Right.
I thought it was so ridiculous. So the cure for a spinal headache is something called a blood patch. And it's not just like a sticker that they put on you like my mom thought. It's not like a tobacco patch. It is a actual medical procedure where they draw blood from your arm and they inject it into your spine to patch over the holes that they've created. It's kind of like a scab. So your blood acts as like a scab
Interesting.
on these nicks that they did to your dura. And at this point, I have zero trust in this anesthesiologist team at Westmoreland Hospital.
How could you?
The guy came in. He was real nice. I said, no, I'm not.
No.
I said, I'm not letting you play with my spine again, is what I said. And he left. And I was like, I'm just going to go home with these caffeine pills. I'm going to drink a lot of Pepsi, and I'll be fine. It'll go away in a few days. That's not what happened. It got significantly worse, and it became debilitating. I've never had a headache that was this bad. I slept every chance I could. Go ahead, Craig.
I just have a question.
Yeah.
Have you tried using chiropractic at all?
Oh, yes. I'm a
Yeah.
regular chiropractor
Okay.
goer. Yes.
Because that's
yeah.
where I'm like, the whole story is like, I'm just thinking,
Wait,
like,
I held
could you
them all the
imagine
time.
Dr. Tressler sitting
Oh,
in
I
this?
know.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I'm going to send him this.
Go for it. Yeah. My
We'll get-
chiropractor's probably not going to be happy either. I haven't
Yeah.
gone back because I'm like nervous for anyone to touch my spine
Oh,
right
I
now.
don't blame you.
But when I do go back, he's not going to be happy either. So, yeah, I couldn't function. Like, every single time Max slept, I slept. I had an ice pack on my head. Like, there was rotating ice packs, like, in my freezer. Going into a dark room, taking these caffeine pills. And then awkwardly enough, they sent me home with a prescription of Oxy, even though I told them not to.
You've got to be kidding
me. They automatically filled it. I was pissed at the moment, but there was a point in time, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. Mac was crying, and I was in so much pain. I said, Ryan, go get me. I had to, like, and it only took the edge off. Like, it didn't even fully take it away.
Really?
Yeah. That's when I knew that it was bad. When OxyContin didn't do the trick. Especially because I'm not someone who takes any pain meds ever.
So you would think it would have a big effect.
Yeah. Like, I get when you overly use pain meds, then they have a less effect. But this should have worked, in my opinion. So, I got released from the hospital on Thursday. By Sunday, I was in so much pain. I called and I said, what do I do to get this blood patch? And they said, you have to go through the ER. So we went to the ER and waited. It was actually not too bad, like the whole process. And the anesthesiologist on call was the one that came to my room, and I basically told him to fuck off.
Oh, you again.
Yeah, he was like, oh, I remember you.
You're like, yeah, I'm back.
I'm like, yeah, can we get this going? So he did the procedure. It's not a fun procedure, I will tell you that. But it took it away.
Probably nothing compared to that headache, though.
No, nothing compared to the headache. And it took it away immediately. Within 5 minutes, It worked. Like, they said, you'll know if it works. And once I was starting to feel myself again, they had me, like, in this little recovery room for a few minutes to make sure I was okay. And I looked at the guy, and I was like, I'm really sorry. Like, I owe you an apology. I was very rude to you. And he was like, my wife would have been way worse. You're fine. And I started asking him some questions because we had kind of broken that tension.
Yeah.
And I was like, why did this happen to me? Like, why did the spinals not work? Why did the epidural not work? Why, like, can you tell anything in my spine? And he was like, honestly, I have no idea why they didn't work. Your spine is fine.
What the heck?
Yeah.
So still, the mystery remains.
Yeah, and I had my 6-week appointment on Tuesday, and I asked the doctor the same question. I'm like, how do we know, like, thinking about a second baby, what do we do? Like, will an epidural work for me? Will a spinal work for me? You know? And they were like, we're just going to have to talk to anesthesiologists. Like, when you get pregnant again, you're just going to have a meeting with them.
That would be a conversation you want to have before you get pregnant again, though, you know? To prepare yourself.
Yeah.
And Sam, like, talk to a midwife or somebody. I mean, my cousin Jamie had 2 babies through C-section, and she's under 2, so less than 2 years later, she had a vaginal delivery in a hole in her home.
My doula, same thing.
So it's great. Like, I am open to that, but I would like to have a VBAC, but I would like to know an epidural's there.
Right.
Like, I don't have that sense of security like everybody else does now. Yeah. Like, it could not work again. You know? And then what if I have to have an emergency C-section, and then it doesn't work? And then I go through, like, I literally asked the doctor on Tuesday, I was like, can I just choose to go under again? And they were like, no.
Instead of going through that trauma.
Yeah, so I'm like, so I'm going to be re-traumatized again? And they're like...
But it's so hard because...
How can you not... how can you not just choose that?
Right.
Because it's your body. You've
been through it. Yeah.
And that's how people used to give birth all the time back in the day.
Yeah, you're right. They did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So...
And they didn't let you... The dad wasn't allowed in the room. Craig's grandmother talked about that. He was not... his pap was not allowed to be there.
Yep, I remember that too. My father-in-law, not even grandparent, like father-in-law, one generation out, they weren't allowed to spend the night. He went home. He assumed Ryan was coming home every night when I was in the hospital. And he's like, no, Dad, I'm, like, staying here.
We both are staying
We're going to stay together.
My mom talked about how when now my sisters are, significantly older than me, but like 18 years. But she told me that when she had her babies, they shaved her before she gave birth.
Yeah. I was asked that.
That was a thing.
Interesting.
And yeah, I
Wait,
think
you were asked that?
Craig's grandmother asked me that.
Oh, I thought you meant the doctors.
Oh, no. Would you like us to? No, she asked me if they were, and I was like, I don't think so. I don't know.
My mom said that. I was like, what?
Your stomach.
But I feel like that's like a sterile thing, maybe.
For the incision.
Like with the scalpel and a hair. Yeah, I can see that. But like, yeah, I was like, oh, that's weird. But that's, I mean, one, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Like, thanks for feeling.
You'd be surprised how many other women could relate to that. Because I feel like we hear about the more normal, quote unquote, normal birth stories. And because it is traumatizing. I mean, if it's not going the way you plan it and it's out of your control, then it can be very traumatizing. So I think talking about it and letting other women know that they're not on their own if something like this were to happen too.
Not alone. I feel still sometimes that like I'm the only person I don't know another person who's had to go under. But
I actually don't either.
Yeah. So hopefully someone out there
maybe you'll find it now.
Yeah.
You can connect.
Hit me up in the DMs, I guess.
We just
give it a follow.
Growing.
Yeah.
Keep growing the group. But yeah, I thought this was really great to hear both yours and Katie's stories in full, because I've heard bits and pieces, but I never heard each little detail. So I appreciate both of you sharing your stories. They, in their own way, had their traumas and uniqueness to it. But, you know, at the end of the day, you both are extremely strong mamas, and you did the dang thing.
Yeah, we did it.
You did it.
Yeah, either way.
You birthed your baby your own way.
Yes.
So it's amazing. But
yeah, and I think everybody just like when you're going into it and that unknown, I mean, me and Sam, like I said, we're both educators. We're both type A. So when you go in with plan A and, you know, it
plan
doesn't pan out how you thought it was going to, and then plan B is going kind of wonky, like, and you just go through these things, you know, it's hard to accept sometimes that it didn't go how you thought.
It's something you have to grieve, for sure.
Yeah, and you have to, and it should be validated, and I hope that anybody listening who had kind of a whatever, and like Sam said, we're not comparing traumas, like every trauma is a trauma. So I hope that people listening feel that validation and know that, you know, it's okay no matter how small, how big it was, you know, speak about it and make sure that people know if you need help. Because I don't think any of us would have made it through without this group that we formed.
Oh my gosh, no.
Yeah, and it's funny because none of us even really were friends in high school. So for all of us to just kind of find each other again.
And ironically have babies
within
back to
3 months of each other. Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah,
but no.
So I hope that people listening do, you know, find a group and,
or if you don't,
talk about it.
I hope we're your group. I mean, I hope this can be a platform where we just share our experiences. Once we get through everybody's birth stories, I think we have lots to talk about. Lots of topics. Everything under the sun. Nothing's safe on this podcast. So just
not
be prepared.
Even you, Craig. Not even you. And I will add too, if you don't have a support network of friends or family like we do, don't be afraid to seek professional help. I am pro therapy. I will continue to be, and I wouldn't have made it through 2020 without my therapist, and I definitely wouldn't have made it through, well, I'm still working on it, but I think I'm coming through on the other end, talking about this trauma, so don't be afraid.
Medicine too. I'm pro medicine over here, you know, I had to quit breastfeeding to take care of my mental health, and if medicine is what you need to, there's no shame in that either, so hopefully.
Lots of different outcomes and experiences, We'll definitely dive into more of these topics into some more episodes, because this was a good one.
Yeah,
we highs and lows, but it was real because we're real moms figuring it out as we go. All right, well, thanks ladies for joining.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Thanks Craig for best producer ever.
Shout out Craig.
If any listeners want to send any questions in, we have an email set up, pumpanddumptalk@gmail.com, or if you're interested in coming on the show,
let us know. Bye.